I served on many vessels across the Atlantic, but none left a scar on me, like the RMS Queen Mary. It was the winter of 1952 when I was assigned as a junior engineer on a voyage from Southampton to New York. Back then, the Queen Mary was the pride of Cunard Line, massive, luxurious, an ocean-going palace that moved like a beast through the stormiest of seas. She was elegant from the outside, but what we knew below decks, those of us who worked the boilers, the engines, the bloodline of the ship, was that the Queen Mary had her secrets. From the moment I stepped aboard, I felt it. Not fear exactly, more like tension, a thickness in the air. Superstitious men always whispered the ship had a soul and not a kind one, that she had witnessed too much during the war, during crossings where passengers vanished or died in mysterious ways. There were stories of drownings, crushed crew, suicides that never made the official logbook. At first, I dismissed them as sailor tales, but something about the steel of her hull hummed in ways that felt alive, like she was holding something in. The voyage started like any other. We left port with over 1,000 passengers, a full crew, and cargo to spare. The North Atlantic was restless as usual. Swells rocked the ship, but she handled it with grace. Down in the engine rooms, the heat was relentless, the roar of the turbines constant. It was business as usual until the second night. We were somewhere past Ireland, about 300 miles out into open water, when a call came down to the engineering deck. The chief engineer, a grizzled Scot named Mallory, was yelling over the radio, "Pressure drop on line 2A, get eyes on it now." I was nearest, so I went. The maintenance corridor that ran alongside that section was a tight, humid tunnel wrapped in pipes, bolts, and shadows. As I moved deeper into the space, I heard it, a soft humming, low and off-key. Not from the engines. It sounded almost like a child humming a lullaby. I froze. No one else was there. No passengers were allowed this far down. I turned my flashlight toward the end of the corridor and saw nothing. But the temperature dropped suddenly, so sharply that my breath came out in fog. That wasn't right. Not in this part of the ship, not with the heat from the boilers nearby. I stood perfectly still, then turned to retrace my steps and saw someone standing behind me. He was barefoot, soaking wet. His coveralls were from an older design, like something worn back in the 1930s. He didn't speak, just stood there at the far end of the passage, face obscured by shadow. I blinked, and he was gone. Just like that. When I reported it, Mallory barked that I'd been breathing too many fumes and sent me to grab a break and clear my head. I wanted to believe he was right, but that humming, I still heard it faintly every time I went back to that corridor. By the third night, the atmosphere on board had shifted. Several crew members began complaining of headaches, dizziness, cold spots. One steward said a young girl had been seen wandering the upper deck alone, but no such passenger existed. The purser checked the manifest twice. Nothing. Another passenger claimed their room had flooded suddenly, but when maintenance checked, it was bone dry. Things escalated. A fireman went missing during his shift. They searched the length of the vessel, every stairwell, every locked compartment. Nothing. The cameras, few as they were in that era, caught no one entering or exiting the area where he vanished. He simply disappeared. The passengers, of course, were kept unaware. That was protocol. Delay panic, delay liability, they always said. But the crew knew. We began whispering in the mess hall about Deck 17, the area near the bulkhead where it always felt colder, where lights flickered even after rewiring, where some claimed they'd seen a figure walk past the portholes from the outside, 15 stories above the ocean line. I remember the fifth night most clearly. We hit rough weather. Winds were peaking at 60 knots, and the ship groaned with the weight of each wave. Around midnight, the generator tripped. All power cut out, an event so rare on the Queen Mary that the entire crew froze. Emergency protocols kicked in. I was dispatched to investigate the fault near the main turbine housing. Walking those blacked-out steel corridors with only a lantern was unlike anything I've done before or since. The silence was deafening. I could hear the creak of every pipe, every water droplet echoing like a hammer strike. As I approached the turbine room, I noticed water on the floor, not pooled from condensation, not from a pipe burst, just water, salt water, but we were sealed, no breach, no holes. Then came the pounding, bang, 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 from inside the turbine casing. I stood frozen, heart hammering, listening to that hollow metallic rhythm. 3 knocks, a pause, 3 more. I'd heard that exact pattern before, from the old stories passed down in boiler rooms and ghost tales. It was the code of a ghost trapped in steel. Then the humming started again, this time closer. The same eerie child's lullaby echoing off the walls. I turned to leave, but the lantern went out. Total darkness. In that blackness, I swear I saw shapes moving, wet footprints forming ahead of me, leading back toward the main corridor. I ran. The rest of the voyage blurred into unease. The storm passed, and we arrived in New York without further incident, but the crew was different, quieter. One officer resigned on the spot. A kitchen hand refused to go below deck again. Mallory never acknowledged what we saw, but I overheard him one night whispering into the ship's old logbook. He said, "One more soul. The ship always takes one." I disembarked with the others, but something clung to me. For weeks after, I dreamed of steel doors slamming shut, of hearing voices whisper from the pipes, of the barefoot man standing just out of reach, soaking wet, staring without eyes. Even now, decades later, I can enter a ship's engine room without feeling a chill crawl up my spine. They say the RMS Queen Mary is docked now, turned into a hotel, a museum, a relic of a golden age. But I know better. That ship was never just a vessel. She was a container for sorrow, for death, for something that came alive during war and never left. They can bolt her to the harbor all they want, but something still walks those halls at night, humming lullabies, waiting for someone to forget that the sea always comes with a cost. And sometimes that cost is your soul. That voyage changed me, took something from me. I don't sail anymore. I work on land now. Quiet jobs, predictable hours. But when fog rolls in and the wind howls like it's hunting, I remember the Queen Mary. I remember the knock, the voice, the man who never blinked. And I wonder who else never made it back.